Hello, my guest today is Anthony Barsamian, former co-chairman of the Armenian Assembly of America. Thank you for agreeing to this interview.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you.
The basic topic of our conversation will be the trilateral meeting in Washington. And to be precise, the Trump's trip, the investment from the U.S. Department, the $145 million. And to start with, I want to mention that it's not a secret that we're entering a completely new era with this Trump trip initiative. The relations between Armenia and the United States. And I would like to ask you, what activities are you undertaking in this regard, and how do you adjust your steps when you need to align your advocacy support in this context?
Sure. Well, thank you. Nice to meet you, as always, here in Yerevan. I travel back and forth between Yerevan and the United States frequently. You know, we've worked with successive administrations, both here in Armenia and in the United States. So the difference now is this initiative, which was started by the Biden White House, is now been passed or been basically initialed with the help of the Trump White House. So I think President Trump deserves some credit for getting the parties together, Azerbaijan and Armenia, at the White House and initialing the agreement. We understand that this is not a ratification of the agreement. It's a bilateral that the U.S. participated in. We hope that it turns into something of substance. But for our work, it hasn't changed. Our job is security, and more security for Armenia. So we're looking at this from the U.S.-Armenia perspective. We're encouraging a stronger, a deepening security and economic relationship between the United States and Armenia. And we think that this may help. Now, the devils are always in the details. So, as the Americans saying. So
my favorite one.
Good. So let's see what happens. We're not necessarily happy that there's still issues unresolved. We're absolutely unhappy that there are still hostages being held in Baku. You can't have peace and hold someone else's hostages. And President Trump did bring that up. And I'm sure it's highly on the agenda of the Armenian government. But I would say that
it is a question of controversy, I think.
Not for me at all. Not for me at all. As a matter of fact, I would say to President Aliyev, if one of those hostages die, the peace deal is probably going to be dead, because Armenians in this country really value those people. We understand that it's a process that must take place through the courts, but frankly, we don't believe we believe it's a sham trial. But that being said, those hostages need to be released. If they're not released, it's really not going to fare well for peace.
But here we deal with the Azerbaijani Red Cross, which is closed now. The question is very hard to have a conclusion in this case, because hostages, we have no news from them. It was the only way to know something about.
So look, there's no secrets in the world. Azerbaijan is an authoritative country. And when you let the Red Cross, or you require that NGOs and the Red Cross leave, it shows that they're authoritarian. So I think they're going to have to be pretty much forced to do some of the things that need to be done. Armenia, on the other hand, is a very free and open society, Christian society, where you have multiple voices. Some we don't like to hear sometimes, but it's a democracy, so that's okay. But really, the Trump administration is going to have to bear down quite hard on Mr. Aliyev to release those Christian prisoners.
Now I want to go to the investment part. What is the Armenian Assembly of America's assessment of the $145 million investment from the U.S.? And do you think it will play the role it is meant to?
Good question. I've always asked for $1 billion from the United States. It's my government, so I can say, if you're going to give Israel multiple billions of dollars, or Egypt or other countries, then Armenia deserves $1 billion. In this case, right out of the gate, we used to get 35, 40, 50 million. So obviously, I give some credit to this government, to the Trump administration, for asking for, or writing into their budget, 145. A lot of that's going to go for the road, and for the transit route. and for logistics. And you can see that sort of getting going. Again, we're really interested in what's going to happen here in terms of development. There's definitely the development of nuclear, and we'll see if Westinghouse has been bidding for that. Let's see if small nuclear comes to Armenia. You know, we also understand, let's be clear, the Armenian Assembly does not interfere in Armenia's politics, nor does it interfere in elections in America. We all have our own political values, and we participate. But as a group, we educate American lawmakers, congressmen, senators. Here, we talk to our Armenian counterparts, and we understand at the end of the day that they're going to do what's in their best interest. But we really hope that the money used here is used properly. U.S. money does not get distributed that widely anymore after the closing of USAID. So Armenia really needs to show itself to use the funds coming from the United States well. And I think that that's something that's a high priority for us. Security and economic development go hand in hand. So if we're going to have secure borders, we're going to have a lot of technology on the borders, a lot of training. And look, we understand that Armenia has a relationship with Russia, with Iran, with Georgia, with Europe.
And there are some red lines, as Iran mentions.
Yeah, and it's good that when TRIP was announced, there was some pushback from some countries, but it seems pretty certain that everyone can live with TRIP. There's no boots on the ground here of U.S. troops in Armenia. The Russians are obviously leaving some of their positions. Armenia's taking security on its own. It's taking its own security, and that's important. It has to stand up as a free country, a secure country. It's getting a lot more weapons from outside sources, so that's encouraging as well.
So can we conclude that Armenia is responsible for its own security?
I think that's the ultimate goal. We, as Armenian Americans, are there to ensure that Armenia has what it needs, whether it be from the United States, France, and I'm sure other countries are supplying Armenia as well, but certainly from the West, that is sort of our emphasis, clearly from the United States, to make sure it has what it needs.
You were talking about economics. It's really pretty important. But does this trip promise us a better economical environment, if we can say so?
I'm going to back you up there. I was security. Economics follows security. As our co-chairman, Oscar Totosian, was saying, where there's American interests, economically, security follows. But Armenia has to lay the table by itself for its own security, making sure that the military is fully capable of defending its borders and defending against enemies. Now, I give the military here high marks because they are now integrating multiple systems into their military. That's great. That's very good. But our military officers have to be paid well, trained well here. They have to have the best education. That's something we aspire to reach. It's good that things are moving in the right direction. It doesn't have to be the largest military, but it does have to be the most equipped and intelligent military. So those kind of things, security and economy, are going to follow each other. I am sure if you ask people in Goris, in Kapan, they're excited about an economic engine in the south. But before we have an economic engine, we need peace. A durable and just peace is what Secretary Rubio said. So we're looking at Azerbaijan right now. We're saying, show us a just peace, a durable peace. How is that going to work when you hold hostages and you do not allow Artsaksis to return? Now, there's another question we have to tackle. People have a right under international law to go back to their homes and villages. So Artsaksis must have that right. Now, that being said, most importantly, captives cannot be held by another country in the time of peace. Mr. Aliyev will turn it. He will say they were subversives, they're treasonous. Artsakh, for the period of 30 years, was recognized by France, Russia, and the United States, the OSCE Minsk Group. That's why Mr. Aliyev wanted to take it off the table, because they were recognizing Artsakh. They had leaders. Those leaders are in jail. They need to be released.
So we are talking about the just peace, not us, but Aliyev. And he said that no one will step back. But the issue of hostages, can't it just make them to step back?
I don't think Mr. Aliyev, as far as this deal goes, we have to see him actually take action to show he wants peace. Every agreement Mr. Aliyev has signed, he has broken. Let's see if he will actually live by this agreement. And by living by that agreement, you would have to release the hostages held in Baku.
Lately, Mr. Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, mentioned that the military tool should be the last security tool for us. What do you think? Is it
Always.
It's a banal question, but I want your comment.
I attended a seminar at the Army War College, and they say peace through strength. That's their motto. So here in Armenia, I think it should be the same motto: peace through strength. You don't use your military; it's the last thing you use. But to the point that we were trying to make, Mr. Aliyev knows quite well that during the Minsk negotiations for those 30 years, his negotiators were at the table, Armenia was at the table, Russia, France, and the United States. Now moving forward, the United States has taken a very principled role in this. I'm sure Russia is still involved in discussions between the two, and I know that Europe is involved. So the same parties are at the table. Let's be honest. The question is, will the actors, will the president and the prime minister live up to a durable and just peace?
How do you work with the Armenian government? Do you primarily support what they do in the US, or do you seek to combine and balance both Armenia's and diaspora's agendas?
So as Armenian Americans, we always tell people the Armenian Assembly does not interfere into internal politics in Armenia. So therefore, we don't have a horse in this race. Our job is to align our values. So when we speak with the Republic of Armenia's government, we see what their priorities are, and we did meet with the government. We met with the National Security Council minister, we meet with the president, we meet with the prime minister, we meet with our ambassador in Washington, the Armenian ambassador in Washington, we meet with our ambassador here, the United States ambassador here, to try to understand how we align our values. So as we meet, we go back and we set our agenda based on shared values. We have our own agenda items as Armenian Americans, obviously. We have issues of making sure that Armenians have the same rights, Armenian Americans in the United States, as everyone else. And if there's a reason that something doesn't go right, we're there to fight against that injustice. But frankly, we work with the government of Armenia to strengthen U.S.-Armenia relations. Our job is not to interfere. We don't get involved in their political cycles. We won't get involved when they elect parliament in 2026. We wait till a government is established, and then we work with that government. I've had the good fortune of coming to Armenia since 1987. So I've worked with every successive governments of Armenia, from Levon Der-Petrosyan to the current Prime Minister Pashinyan government and those in between.
Some fresh news from today in the U.S. Congress. Representatives Dina Tatas and Gaz Bilarakis have introduced the Azerbaijan Sanctions Review Act of 2025. What is it? The measure calls on the Trump-Vance administration to consider sanctions against senior Azerbaijani officials under the Global Magnitsky Act, citing some war crimes, human rights violations, and of course the unlawful detention of Armenian prisoners of war and civilians. I want to know your opinion on this issue. What do you think? How will this affect the Armenian prisoners and their families, and why is this legislation important for the Armenian community?
That's a very good question, and that's a very good piece of legislation that was introduced. If anyone knows the history of the negotiations, the Biden administration said they will take the same principles or very similar principles that were just initialed. The difference was the previous administration would not have released sanctions on Azerbaijan or Armenia. They would not sell weaponry and all those things until they ratified the agreement. The Trump administration released 907. Now, I'm not sure if that was part of a negotiation, but certainly in any kind of agreement, people give up things. I would not have given up 907 if I was Armenia, because having sanctions on Azerbaijan is a very powerful tool to making sure that an agreement gets ratified. Do I believe President Aliyev will ratify an agreement? I probably don't believe it, because we've taken off a lot of the levers on him to. He may find that President Trump is going to force him into this, which is the only reason. Now, why do we like this act that was just introduced? Because it says sanctions will be imposed on individuals. The Magnitsky Act says individuals from Azerbaijan, from other countries who aid or abet the corrupt practices cannot come to the United States. So that being said, 907 can still be imposed. It was just waived this year, but it could be reimposed in a year. So I'm not saying that 100% it's off the table. 907 is not gone. It just was waived once the initial agreement, the agreement was initialed. Okay. That being said, this is a good piece of legislation. I commend the Congresswoman and the Congressman and all the Congress for looking into this and hopefully passing a sanctions bill. Why? Because it holds the parties accountable to act in good faith to bring forward a durable and just peace.
And what specific activities are you engaged in as a part of your advocacy that affects with the House of Representatives?
So the Armenian Assembly, like other organizations, has an active cycle all year that we do work in Washington. One of our shining examples is we have interns who work in Washington in the summer. The Armenian Assembly is one of the oldest internship programs in the summer internship game in Washington. There are many. There are Jewish interns. There are probably different ethnic lobbies. There are people who work in different universities who come and intern. But the Armenian Assembly, since the early 1970s, has had an internship. As a matter of fact, it's going to be 50 years old in 2026. That being said, we also have days that we go in and do public advocacy. We go to Congress. I know everyone thinks the Armenian Assembly is a lobby, and they use that word loosely, but it's really a public advocacy organization. We advocate for important issues to build U.S.-Armenia relations. That being said, hundreds of Armenian Americans go up on the Hill, a lot of young people, because we have a very vibrant young community in America, young Armenian American community, and they lobby they go to their congressman and senator to advocate for things that are important to the U.S.-Armenia relationship. So I've done that many times. I continue to do it. Our children have done it, a lot of friends and family. So we really encourage public advocacy and people coming to Washington, and we will help facilitate that. We'll make sure that they get educated when they go up to their congressman and senator, because most Armenian Americans now have lived in America for 3 generations. So this is not a new country for Armenian Americans. I mean, my father served in World War II in the Pacific Theater. We have a deep, long history of being Americans. We're proud of it. But as Armenian Americans, we have certain demands on our own government, and building a strong security relationship between the U.S. and Armenia is a top priority.
I want to go back to the peace agenda, because you were talking about Biden administration and Trump administration, and I, to be honest, ironically call Trump a piece of duff who is seeking for a Nobel Prize. Esther needs to give him a Nobel Prize to confirm the peace agenda?
So this is an interesting about Americans. When we have an election cycle, whoever is president of our country. My job is not to judge him today. History will judge Joe Biden. History will judge Donald Trump. But if he does great things and it helps societies, it saves lives. You know, I'm also on the board of the Aurora Foundation, which we give $1 million, the organization, to those who fight against injustice and save lives. I can't judge a U.S. president today. I can work with them. People ask me all the time, who's your favorite president here? Who's your favorite president or prime minister here? here in Armenia. And I would say, my job isn't to have a favor. My job is to work with them. So as an advocate for what I believe in, I would say that Donald Trump, if he does solve problems in the world, saves lives, stops wars, then someone will give him an award. And if he's looking for the Nobel, maybe that will happen. President Obama was given the Nobel, so I have nothing. I don't believe that he's exempt in any way. I mean, some people in America feel that he's not worthy of the prize, but that's not for me to judge. That's for the prize committee to decide. But I would just say, and I'll reemphasize this, that our president in our country is our president. Thank God it's only 4 years, 8 years at a time, because like anything else, citizenry gets tired of the same person leading with their agenda. Very rarely after 8 years do people all agree that that president should remain, even though they do great things. We have a divided country, just like this is a divided country. And usually when a new president is elected, the citizens come together all under the banner of the next election cycle. So that being said, I'm probably being a little bit gratuitous, but I do believe in the values of democracy and the tenets of, the president has the right to do his job, and we hope he does the best job he can do.
And now a small change of vector to Israel. So Trump is a dove of peace for Israel because he's trying to negotiate with Netanyahu or be friends with him. But I want to go even further. Netanyahu and recognition of Armenian genocide. This seems to be a historic step from him. Is it historic or is it not? Does it have some
that's a good question.
Importance for us?
So I was involved
in geopolitical, amid this geopolitical tensions. What is it?
I was involved when the Biden administration recognized the Armenian genocide. The president saying the word genocide is not that important. It feels good for us as Armenian Americans, but really it was Congress that passed the genocide. It was the House and the Senate, together with our allies and friends and leaders. Why? Because they felt they needed to do the right thing. Again, Israel. Now, we are very pained as Armenians because we have Armenians who understand Israel, Palestine. We feel very deeply for the Palestinian people. We feel very deeply for the Israeli people, both sides. But there's one link between Israel and the Armenian people that is unbroken, and that is the Holocaust and the genocide. I believe that the Armenian genocide would not have the level of recognition but for Holocaust scholars. Jewish Holocaust scholars put the Armenian genocide on the map. They said, that is a genocide. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu has said the word genocide, or said, I just said it, meaning I did. It carries very little weight. What would carry weight is if the Knesset passed a resolution calling for the country to formally recognize the Armenian genocide. That will be recognition. Now, going back to what I said, Holocaust scholars and Armenian genocide scholars know when they see genocide and they know how to stop it. So that being said, right now we are in a very difficult time in history. Our hearts do go out to the Palestinian people. Our hearts do go out to Israelis who have been killed or held hostage. We're in the same boat. But frankly, we think Mr. Netanyahu has to come clean. I mean, he sells weapons to Azerbaijan. That also has to stop. I mean, if he believes that our two people have a relationship enough for him to call on, or to use the word genocide, then he himself should come to the next step and say, we need to ensure Armenia's safety as a victimized people, even though I don't think Armenians today are victims, nor do I think Israelis are victims anymore. We have a responsibility in the world to speak out for Holocaust, genocide, and certainly for ethnic cleansing. And what happened in Artsakh was clearly ethnic cleansing.
But the world is shouting now about the genocide in Gaza. This is, again, a little bit controversial.
I would say that the world has to stop mass killings, and we all know it. I mean, the sad part of our history is we feel it on our skins. Jewish people feel it on their skins too. They know when they see mass killings and ethnic cleansing. I think in this case, they have to own up to what's going on. And I think my good friend, I have a very good friend in Israel, his name is Nadav Tamir, and he said...
Native Jewish.
Jewish, Israeli. And he speaks out every day for the plight of what's happening there. I mean, the good citizens of Israel speak up against ethnic cleansing and violence and what's going on in Gaza, in Armenia. When Nadav Tamir came here, he went to the he went to the genocide memorial, and he said, I'm embarrassed that my government has not recognized, he's a diplomat, because I'm embarrassed that the Israeli state has not recognized the Armenian genocide. So many good people in these societies need to raise their voice and stop. My hearts go out to the hostages, both Israeli and those who are held hostage from Palestine. I mean, it's just an atrocity, and we as Armenians can't sit by and watch it. We have to raise our voices as well.
Let us come back to the Armenian diaspora and your advocacy in here. What do you consider to be the most important aspect of Armenia diaspora relations at this point, particularly in this period where tensions are rising between the government and the Armenian diaspora? There are some issues.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, the Armenian diaspora is multifaceted. So even though some people have tensions, some of us are professional, and we deal with, I don't find it to be that intolerable to speak to the Armenian government as an Armenian American. But I would say that our job is to align our values to build a security relationship for Armenia. So if you ask me the one most important thing that I work on every day, I want to make sure the children of Kapan, the children of the small towns and villages. I went south this trip, and I drove south. So I see how close Armenia is now to the Azerbaijani border, and it really is an issue for me. So whether you live in Goris, Kapan, Merli, those people need security, and I'm sure they think the trip road is and the transit route will give them some security.
But do we have the same priorities or agendas? I mean, we in Armenia and the Armenian diaspora.
Most of what I've talked to, I mean, I'm here. I've been here for 30 years. So the people I've grown up with, the people of Armenia now. I mean, I'm 60 now, or 61. But the fact is that since I was 21 years old, I've been coming to Armenia. So I know the country quite well. That being said, I think that we all have the value of making sure our children are safe. When they go to bed at night, they don't have to worry about security. That's our job. So Armenian Americans, together with Armenian leaders, want to make sure their country is secure. And if that means having peace with your neighbor, then so be it. Whether it's Turkey or Azerbaijan, we need peace. Obviously, Georgia, Iran are fine. I commend Armenia for having good relations with those countries. But if they're going to tackle, I mean, my family is obviously from historic Armenia, from Western Armenia. And I've been to Turkey. There are wonderful people there. Many of those people want good relations with Armenia as well, but their governments have to step it up. Mr. Aliyev really does need to prove himself now. The rhetoric is not going to work because there is no more war. There is no more opportunity for war. And if there is another war, the world is going to step in and say, you promised peace.
But as the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, mentions, ceasefire is not a peace. Do we have guarantees in here? So ceasefire.
There's never any guarantees for peace. I mean, peace comes when two people want peace. And the only guarantee in this case will be if the people have the will to say and do the right thing. We look for signals from Azerbaijan whether the language is going to change, whether their history books will change, whether they'll allow Artsaksis to go back to their homes and villages. Whether they release the hostages, most importantly, immediately. Those will demonstrate steps towards peace. Armenia is doing what it's supposed to do. It's demarcating the border. It's taking some very tough decisions. So we'll see what happens. So I'm a wait and see kind of person right now. I would say, let's see if actions back up the words and the goodwill that was in Washington a couple weeks back.
But period of this delimitation seems to be somehow a little bit uncertain. Do you consider it so, like, from far? How do you think?
Look, Armenia has to do what's right for Armenia. It certainly should protect its territory. I can't determine, I mean, there are historical maps that said this was Armenia. The prime minister believes that that's where the delineation lines are. Armenia is a pretty special place, but in true peace, the line wouldn't matter too much. If you look at Europe, you can drive from Italy to France to Germany. Other than language and culture and food, pretty much those people all live together in peace. That's the model we should shoot for. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but ultimately that's where we have to head.
It's a hard work, like family. Mr. Barsamian, to what extent do you think Armenia has to align its foreign policy in a context of communication and cooperation with diaspora, if we can call so?
I don't like the word diaspora because it's such a big word and it means like the people coming back to Armenia. I focus clearly on Europe, but most importantly, America. So I would say, we do have disagreements. There are times we disagree with Armenia's policies. We do it behind closed doors. We don't do it in public, the Armenian Assembly, because we have always pledged to support the people of Armenia. And you can't support the people of Armenia unless you have a relationship with the government. That being said, we do align on the big issues. There are problems, let's be honest. We have a problem right now between the church and the state. And the church should do what it's supposed to do, which is tend to the flock of Armenia and nourish the faith of Armenia. And the government should govern Armenia. They should do the best job they can to govern the people in Armenia, the state.
But they are somehow interrelated.
They're interrelated, but yet they're different. They're different jobs, basically. And we're trying to solve or work through some of the disagreements there. So we, as Armenian Americans and faithful members of the Armenian Church and believers, have a stake in the church. So we have a separate line into the church than we do into the government of Armenia. Our route to the government of Armenia really is, to be honest with you, is through our own government. So we can talk to the Armenian government, we can work with them, but eventually our impact is mostly on the U.S. government.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.